The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Sisters Speak. This is a pre-recording for a Ramadan show, so it's not actually live, but you can join in on the discussion. And we're here in the studio with myself. I'm Sonia speaking, and who else do we have with us?
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's Fareen.
Assalamu alaikum Ramadan Kareem, it's Mariam.
Welcome salam guys, thank you so much for joining me. And before we start, please Fareen, would you be able to tell our guests and listeners how they can get in touch with us and where they can listen to us?
Yes, so you can listen to us at Inspire FM 105.1 FM. You can go to our Facebook shows. Also, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Even if you have any suggestions or you want to just ask us anything in general, we have an Instagram at Sisters Speak. You can also message us on Twitter and any other social media platforms like TikTok.
Thank you so much. And Mariam, would you like to tell our listeners what our show is about?
Yes, our show is a platform for Muslim girls to voice their own opinions on current events and issues and form discussions on general topics such as religion, culture, politics on social media. We want to note that all opinions and views are our own and we respect all other opposing views.
Thank you so much. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, this is our Ramadan show and it's our Ramadan topic of this week, which is gratitude. So we are going to speak about that during our main show. But before we go into that, we're going to do our Thought for the Week segment. So Mariam, I'm going to come to you first. What's your thought for the week this week?
My thought of the week is about being intentional, especially I guess in light of Ramadan as well. If you're thinking about how we kind of cultivate good habits, we all start with intentions. But even before that, I think something that I'm trying to introduce in my own routine is just before I go to sleep, think about the things I'm grateful for in the day. And if it's really difficult, I just look around me and use my senses. I'm grateful for what I can see, what I have eaten today, I have a roof on top of my head. And I just feel like that really helps me cognitively because it reframes my thought processes in terms of looking at things more positively. So even simple things are just having food. It's nourishing me. If I'm nourished, then I can spend time with my family. That's a good thing. If I'm nourished, I can pray, salah. I won't be tired. So just really thinking about it on a very granular level and just being intentional.
So when you say intentional, do you mean like before you do something, you think about why you're doing it, or after, or both?
Before I do it, so I think, how is this pleasing to God? And how is this going to help me get closer to God?
Okay, lovely, thank you. That actually reminds me of when I was part of a fundraiser and someone just came and reminded us and said, just remember your intentions and why you're doing it. Because obviously while you're doing fundraising and raising money for whatever, maybe charity, it could be for a natural disaster and supporting people, it's not meant to carry away because that is the whole point. You're trying to raise money and you're like, yes, donate for us as for good cause, but also just remember renew your intentions, like why are you doing this? Where is it going? Who's it going to? And so on. So that just kind of reminds me with the intentions. And also if this is during Ramadan, I'm sure we're all going to be hopefully taking part in charity as well, as we always do, hopefully. Yeah, thank you for that. Fareen, would you like to share your thought for the week?
Sure. Before that, I just want to say that's a really good mindset to have because it gives you so much motivation to do that thing that you're saying. Just on to my thought of the week. I've just been thinking about a lot about my parents. Obviously now that I'm living away from home, and I think during Ramadan is the first Ramadan that I'm not going to spend with my family. The second, I think I'm just going to spend it at uni, which is obviously this Islamic, society and Islamic community. So it's not the same thing as when you're doing it with your parents. And I've been seeing a lot of things on TikTok, social media, whatever you want to, about saying that it's your parents' first time living life and that we should be kind to them. And I think it's so true because they spent their life, taking care of us and teaching us patience and everything. And there's so many modern things now, that technology that they won't understand, and us getting frustrated or angry at them for not understanding, I think is something that we obviously shouldn't do. And for example, when I teach my mom or my dad something new about technology, sometimes you get so frustrated. It's something human, right? You just spend so long explaining something and then they come up and they're like, how do I do this again? But it's always important to have patience and understand that, like, for us, the world was new when we were born. Our parents, when we were born, they taught us how to navigate through the world and teach us everything from scratch. We were just babies and doing our whole life. And for us to teach them something into this modern technology world, I think is something that's really important. And you think that it's something that's going to make you angry or frustrated because they don't understand it. But once you're away from them, like I am at uni, you understand how much you miss those conversations with your parents at home. Just half an hour trying to figure out how to, I don't know, change your settings or your keyboard language. So
wow. So would you say that being away at university has made you realize those moments with parents are so precious and you value it more now?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, that's lovely. But yeah, just thinking about doing Ramadan at university, I know there's obviously the side where you miss your parents and the family, the livelihood, and that's a big part of Ramadan. But also for me, looking back to when I was at university, some of those iftars were one of my favorite iftars. And it was, you have so many different types of people that celebrate Ramadan in their own way and worship in their own way as well. But when you're together, you're there for one purpose, one reason. So it was really nice. And yeah, just looking back, they're some of my fondest memories at university, having those iftars together. And I was just saying this to Mariam earlier, how it's so weird. It's always exam period. Like now this year again, it's still April, which is quite tough. Like it is, you have end of term assignments, sometimes dissertation period if you're in the final year. And before that, I was doing my A-levels and it was Ramadan. And before that, I was doing my GCSEs and it was Ramadan. So yeah, we've done it all, and we've done the 18-hour fast as well. So hopefully this year will be easier. Inshallah. Yeah. But yeah, my thought of the week, we'll just move on to it. It's something my younger sister showed me, and it makes sense because she's still young. So it's do something today that your future self will thank you for. And it's a great one because I think when we think of these quotes, do something that your future self, I always thought of it as like decision making and so on and so on. But that also means things like taking a rest, thinking about yourself, thinking about what's best for you, and not necessarily just working. And I say that because looking at that quote at my age you see this stuff on social media, which is like, grind today, I put that in quotation marks, or like work really hard now so you can relax in the future. And that's not necessarily always the case. Doing something today might also mean just, making arrangements for yourself, maybe cooking, meal prep for the week. Like that's your future self as well. And yeah, in terms of making money, like I just feel like that's not really something that should be taking over and consuming you as well. It could be anything. It could be part of like learning a language. It could be making time for yourself, talking to your parents and so on and so on. And doing things that you'll look back and be like, oh, I'm really glad I did that, or well done to past me for doing that. But yeah, thank you, Amira, my younger sister, for helping me with that. She's actually in the studio with us today. Hi, Amira.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome, Sam. Thanks for being here. And would you like to also share your thought of the week?
Yeah, so there was one that I saw like a few days ago, and it was something that said, one small positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. And I think this is really important because when you have a positive mindset at the beginning of the day, it can make your day be really good. And I've been having that a lot lately because I go to college and sometimes I don't really want to go. But sometimes I have a good mindset. I'm saying, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to make the most out of it. I'm going to do everything that I want to do today. And, just work hard. And it makes me want to enjoy the day more.
That's lovely. Mariam, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really good way to frame things, and I think cultivating a positive attitude does really help you to achieve any kind of goals that you have. Yeah. But on the note of Sonia, what I wanted to kind of ask is if I can.
Yeah, sure.
What things have you done that your future self will thank you?
I think that's a tricky one because it's a thought now. It wasn't a thought last week.
If you reflect on it, that I'm sure you've done things that you are really glad that you've done. And I can give one example. And I think that the film that you made.
Yes, I was actually thinking that. I was reflecting on that earlier today with my sister at home. And again, I'm really glad I took that leap of faith and did it, even while I was working a full-time job, because I didn't actually have the capacity all the time. But in that moment, I thought, I'm going to regret it if I don't do it right. And forget even making the film. It was the application that I'm thanking, like patting myself on the back for. Because I think it's always that part that all of us stop at. Like it's always like, oh, the application seems long, or looking at the criteria, I probably won't get in. And we have all these thoughts and self-doubt moments. And for me, just doing that application was the big achievement for me. I mean, obviously making the film was amazing. Alhamdulillah, I'm so glad I did it. And I think my future self will be grateful. I'm grateful now because if I look back, I might think, you have these goals and dreams, but what do you really do to like try and get them? And I have so many excuses, which are valid excuses too, because I'm tired all the time, or I'm working, or I'm busy, or I'm being an Uber driver, or so on and so on. But at the same time, you just have to do that for yourself. So that's one example. And I think other examples would be like taking time to spend time with my family. So I actually remember being at university, and there was many times where, you're like, I have an assignment due, or I have 1,000 words left of my essay and it's like tomorrow. But you'd still go to someone's house, or you'd still invite family over and come downstairs to join in the gathering or whatever. And at the time you might be like, oh no, why am I doing this? I'm wasting time. But looking back, you're like, I'm really glad I did that. Really glad I spent time with that person and gave time for myself and my family. So yeah, those are some examples. But yeah, I think that's the end of our thought of the week now, thought of the week segment. We'll quickly move on to our hot topic for the rest of the first half of the show. And in the second half of the show, we will talk about gratitude during Ramadan and overall. Okay, so our hot topic this week is about university in general, and also spending Ramadan at university. I think two of us have done that. One of us is going through that right now, and one of us is still in college. So you may not go to university, but we'll just talk a little bit about that. So, Mariam, do you remember fasting during Ramadan? Fasting during university. I hope you were doing it during Ramadan.
I remember thinking, how am I going to do my university degree with inability to kind of concentrate? But actually, now I know that actually it enhances your cognitive attention. And I think that's something that we really undermine, is that the clarity that you get. Because if you think about it, food takes a lot of your time. Thinking about it, eating it, preparing it, and just,
Yep.
all those kind of things. I really it really freed up my time, and it really did make me feel like I'm doing this for the sake of Allah who's going to make a way for me. So for me personally, I had apprehension, but I think once I actually fasted and I did my university courses, and I remember this was during COVID time as well. I was in my final year, and it was my dissertation semester as well, and I had exams.
Wow.
So it was really intense, but I kind of found a way. I think that's what we need to do. Think about how you can adjust and acclimatize yourself to a routine. So for me, I knew that, okay, I have a certain amount of capacity in the day, and I actually want to, invoke worship, but I'll start revising after iftar, because I'll have a bit more energy and I can concentrate. And to me, at that time, I recognized that this is for the sake of Allah too. Like, I'm getting the degree, I'm getting educated, and I'm going to serve my community. And so therefore, this can be seen as an act of worship as well. And going back to my quote of the week about thinking about intentions. So I wasn't too hard on myself, and I do think that sometimes we are quite hard on ourselves in Ramadan, because we think there's just one way of achieving Allah's pleasure, but there's multiple ways. And I think that's the beauty of intention. So for me, it's just really thinking about what can I do in my capacity as an individual to kind of gain Allah's pleasure.
Wow, that's really good advice. And I like how you mentioned that you worked out what works for you during that time. I mean, alhamdulillah, you passed, right? You got your degree, so it worked, and you can absolutely fast whilst at university and doing those final essays and dissertation, like you mentioned. Actually, I remember comparing university to, like, let's say 9 to 5 job. In uni, the only kind of freedom and flexibility you do have is you make your own day and your own timetable. So if during study period, you could literally sleep and then wake up for prayer times and then study in the night, because that's when you have the most energy, right? And the one good thing I remember is the solidarity you have with your friends and anyone else who might be fasting too, because you'll all be awake during that time, or you're all kind of going through the same thing, you have the shared experiences. So Fareen, what are your thoughts? I mean, this is going to be your first year, right?
Yeah, this is gonna be my first Ramzan in university, making my own style, making my own sahri, everything. No, just my mom making it. But I'm glad, because this year I got lucky and I have a friend who's my flatmate. She's Muslim, so we are now doing this whole plan together where we wake up. If one of us doesn't wake up, we wake each other up.
Oh, that's so lovely.
We go to the same iftars, and we made something for those iftars and take it. So it's being a really nice experience. You don't feel lonely at all. That's one thing that I was afraid of, that I was going to feel lonely, but I'm feeling really blessed, first of all. And it's a new experience. You meet so many people because everyone's busy in their own lives, but I feel like Ramzan and iftar is that one time where everyone's just for,
yes, for the purpose of opening your fast. Yeah.
So everyone's going to come. So everything is full, the food is there, we're talking and praying, and it's just really lovely.
That's really, really nice. And would you say that you feel the difference between obviously being with your family, but now you're being with, not only strangers, but people you don't know and they're just friends? Like, how does that feel?
I feel like when you do it with your family, you don't have a responsibility of actually talking with someone and making that making that social effort. You just eat with your family because I think there's no responsibility to kind of maintain a conversation. But what is nice about doing it at uni is that you meet, like I said before, you meet so many people every day, and it's not just something where you eat and then you just leave. You know, you have so much time to eat, and after everyone's full, then you have so much energy to talk with everyone and meet other people. And I think they also plan to bring like board games and everything.
That's really
after
nice.
prayer. So it's a good experience. Before when I was at home, I used to eat iftar and then just go to sleep or like study, like you said. But just spending 1-2 hours and then
Yeah, I think it is nice, and it just has that sense of community, doesn't it? Yeah, and that's what you want when you're far away from home, and you're all doing something that you're used to doing at home with your family, but now you're doing it with random people or strangers and people from university. So it's really nice, and I think the fact that they're bringing in other stuff as well, like board games and so on, it just makes you feel a bit better, like being away from home, because it is a weird one, isn't it? Like, even the fact that you're all out at dark I feel like even that is like, I don't usually see people in the nighttime, right? Because I remember thinking that too, because those times during university, again, you're there because we're studying as well, because it's literally exam period, and then you take a break all for the same thing. And I think that's really nice. And also during that time is, like I said, you meet people of the same faith, but of like different kind of sects as well. So like people will obviously pray how they pray or fast how they believe in fasting, but it's really nice. It's almost eye-opening, because when you're at home, you see the same people, five people, they're going to do it the same way you do it, right? That when you're there, did you really saying something? Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was just going to say this, there's so many people from different ethnicities, different cultures, and they do different things at Ramadan, so it's really nice to see. So
it definitely is. No, it's the same thought, like even, like you said, different cultures or different countries and so on, and they have different food and different just traditions and different ways of maybe opening their fast. And I mean, even the fact, like, I remember going to, like, I think one of my friends' houses, and they were all having fruit when they opened their fast. And that's quite normal now, I've realized. But in my house, we never used to do that. And when it was summer, we had watermelons. That was all the rage. But, like, generally, they were like, we will always have fruit when we open the fast. Whereas I always had fruit at the end because it was like a dessert type item. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, it's much better than having, like, oily food, right? Like samosas and stuff, and try to pray. And it's not good. Don't recommend that. Dates and fruits, yeah, definitely dates, but I just didn't know the fruit part, so that was really nice. But yeah, I think definitely, like we said, the university solidarity part of it, that's probably one of the best things, because you all come together for the same purpose, when usually you're also separate, doing literally your own degrees, complete different things, living in different spaces. That's really nice. Amira, you obviously don't go to university right now, but you may be going to college during Ramadan, right? Is it during... How are you anticipating this? How do you feel?
I don't really know how to feel about it, because I just feel like it'll be the same. But in my college, I'm kind of surrounded by a lot of
non-Muslims.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, it's going to be a bit different to how it has been in the past. But during year 11, it was during our mock time, I remember, during our mocks. I was following what Mariam said about how making your foods and everything takes up a lot of time. It was amazing, like, during the mock time, because I was like, no, I'm not going to eat. The food is not going to make me revise. I can revise without it and stuff like that.
And you did?
Yeah.
Well done.
But yeah, I think this year
hopefully, yeah. I definitely think you get more time. Like, it really makes you realize how much time food takes up in your day. Yeah. And even now, I'm just at work, but it's like a meme. Like, me and my work colleagues think about what we're going to eat for ages. Like, it'll be like 11 o'clock and we're like, what's everyone having today? Have you got packed lunch? What are we eating? Are we ordering? And there's a whole thought process, and then you eat as well, and it just takes up a lot of time. So I think that's one nice thing, wherever you are in like education establishment or work establishment, you'll bring back a lot of time for yourself. But yeah, do you guys have any tips if you are like in exams during that time or studying? How can you manage that?
When I was doing exams, this is something weird that I study a lot more when I'm hungry. So it's not like after iftar I get lazy and I don't do anything. So that's why I like to do all my study before iftar when you're hungry. I don't know why I have so much energy before that. So for example, now when I have to go somewhere, I do all my study before, and then it's kind of the reward is eating.
It's time to be prudent, I guess, to fast and to feel more. It's more conducive for you to fast and not eating anything that
Really? With Farine, I feel like that's part of an ADHD trait, where it's really bad. So it's a thing where, no, I'm saying it because I can relate. It's a thing where you reward yourself with food, essentially. So you're like working towards that. So do you know what I mean? Like you're like, I know I'm gonna get a good, like a cheat, a reward at the end. So I'm just gonna do this, and then I get that reward.
Yeah.
It might be that, but also like you said, you get like lazy after you eat,
I
right?
get so lazy. Don't you guys get sleepy after you eat?
I
I
do.
get so sleepy.
Carbs.
Yeah, garlic.
That's really funny. But what about the counter argument of like, you need food for energy, you need food to be awake and to be alert and active? And what do you think of that,
I
Mariam?
think it's when it's conditioning, right? Because we over consume, and that's why we feel that way. Whereas actually, the kind of the sunnah, the prophetic way, is to have a lot less than what we do now, and have a lot less meat. We have a lot of meat in our diet, so that's not something that we should be doing. And just having a very balanced kind of diet. So I think because we eat so much processed food, foods that is not actually fuel for our body, this is why we feel that slump. Whereas if we were actually fueling our body with healthy food, we wouldn't feel that way. And a limited amount as well.
Yes, I agree with you. Definitely on the whole foods and the processed food part of things. Like, I see it now a lot, because when you like compare it and have like good food and have bad food, and it makes you feel, doesn't make you feel great afterwards, does it? It's almost like a guilty thing. You have it and you're like, oh, I regret this instantly. But yeah, I think you do need food, like you said, obviously for energy and so on. But often the stuff we have, that's when you get the carbs crash, or you're like in a food coma, quotation marks. But yeah, what about the lack of water?
But I think that's something that your body kind of gets conditioned to as time. As you probably notice, I'm sure everything gets, the first week is quite difficult, but then your body kind of acclimatizes to that. So
Yeah.
I think it's quite amazing that what the human body can, condition itself to.
Also, I feel like when we can't drink it is when we crave it most, because normally I don't drink that much. I don't drink that much liquids during the day, so I don't really feel it until it's Ramadan time, like now, and I'm like, I don't need it, but I just want it because I can't have it, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
So
feeling.
For me, I take a lot more time. So for me, it's actually really fun. I get really dehydrated. But I think how I kind of accustom myself is just not try to get too hot. I get myself cool.
yeah, don't exert too much energy, right? I remember I had a sticker during Ramadan that I wore at school, and it said, "Be gentle, I'm fasting." I know, I need to find them, and if I don't find them, I'll print them for you guys this year, okay? Because it's a reminder to yourself, like, don't try and do all the things you usually do when you're not fasting. Like, you need water, so just be gentle with yourself. Amira, what are your thoughts on the lack of water during Ramadan and studying and going to school and so on?
I think I'm okay with that. Because kind of like what Celine says, I don't really come with water on the day. So yeah, what's I going to say?
Just going to school in general.
I think the school makes me, I'm busy anyway, so I don't really focus on my stomach. But then when it's lunchtime and I can smell the food, I'm like, I want to eat. But I think I'm pretty good at it.
But you get through it, don't you? Yeah, that's the point.
I have a question for you, Sonia.
Go ahead.
I think, we can compare our Ramadan in university to our 9 to 5. I just want to ask you, like, what differences have you found and what challenges have you found?
Well, on what Amira said, like in school, how you kept busy, that actually helps a lot. It's nice to have a routine, I think. And comparing that to 9 to 5, obviously at work you are busy, but it's nowhere near how busy you are at school. Like, work busy and school busy is not the same. Work busy is like headache, whereas school busy is like fun. So I definitely think me personally, even though it was much hotter, we were in like really heat wave weathers, we had A-levels and GCSEs, I found that easier than I do fasting whilst at work. I think it's really, because, you're often sitting at the same desk, if it's like office based, and it's just a lot of just your brain and your eyes are just looking at a screen all day. You're not learning, it's only you and the screen. Does that make sense? So it's very enclosed. And food is often like a reward when you're at work as well. Like, it's a break, isn't it? So now when you take breaks, you're like, what do I do during my break? Obviously, you can go for a walk, talk to people, but we're not used to that. And so personally for me, I find it a bit more difficult at work in comparison to school. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think the same as well. For me, it's just, we're quite motionless. We're just sitting at a desk. And I think for me, that doesn't help in any capacity, because at least when you're in school or university, you get to move around.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to change environments, but when you're at work, you're just in this one environment, and it becomes quite one-dimensional, and it's not very good for the brain. So I think for me, it's just, work is so intense, and I just feel like it takes it out of me. So
yeah, I agree with you. We need to figure out ways. I know this hot topic was about education and fasting, but maybe we'll do one next week, which is about working, like an office job, and fasting, because we need to figure out ways to help ourselves, right? We need to we can't get into this. It's kind of bad, like, for my body as well. Like, I can feel it just getting weaker and weaker while I sit there. Whereas when you're in school, I remember doing PE during Ramadan, and we managed to do that, right? And, we had sports day during Ramadan once, like, literally people doing 100-meter races and so on, and we managed it. I don't know if it's because it can't be age. Fareen's young, and she agrees with me. So it's just the activeness, being active and not being active, right? But yeah, any other thoughts on that, Mariam?
No, I just think I'm just trying to think, how am I going to help myself this year in terms of work and fasting. But I think a lot of people should know that there should be accommodations from your employers to be able to help you navigate Ramadan. So starting earlier, finishing earlier, that type of thing. And don't be afraid to ask. I think it's really important, because that's one of the things about diversity, right? You have to understand that if you want people to be thriving at the workplace, you have to learn about equity, and you need to give them the same platform. And because people are fasting due to their religious beliefs, then you need to be able to accommodate that. If your leadership is good, you should be able to kind of get those adjustments.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And as I mentioned, I think we will talk about that again next week or the week after. It's good to speak about fasting and Ramadan in different environments and contexts. That is it for the first half of our show. Please join in on our next half, where we will be talking about gratitude during Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're listening to an Inspire FM podcast, making available our popular programs from our daily broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Sisters Speak. This is the second half of our pre-recorded show during Ramadan, and our topic this week is about gratitude and gratitude during Ramadan. Before we begin, again, Fareen, would you like to remind our viewers how they can get in touch if they do have any thoughts about our show today?
Yes, so you can message us on Instagram at Sisters Speak. We're always tend or try to be active. You can send us any thoughts that you have, or any recommendations for any shows, or even about this show. If you have any thoughts or anything that you want to add in, we will be more than happy to answer. We are also on TikTok at sisterspeak_, where we just post the life of a radio presenter, for example.
Yes.
That's our social media.
Lovely. Exactly. Thank you. Give us a follow and just join in the discussion. We'd love to hear your thoughts, people. I'm going to go straight into it. We are talking about gratitude. This is part of Inspire FM's topics and general themes during this month. And we're just going to dive straight in and speak about how practicing gratitude aligns with Islamic principles and values, which is our first question for today's topic. Mariam, what are your thoughts on that? How does practicing gratitude align with our principles and values in Islam?
I think it's understanding and knowing Allah, that whatever He gives us is out of His mercy and it's out of His blessing, as opposed to our entitlement. And it gives us a outlook to kind of premise our whole life on, in terms of whatever happens to us is out of Allah's mercy, as I said, but also in a way that any test that we have, there's a greater purpose for it. So I think having gratitude is just recognizing that anything that you go through life is because Allah really loves you and you're going to get through it. And it's just, I feel like it's just a very blessed way to kind of think.
Yeah, and I really like that you said anything that you go through in life, it's part of the test, it's part of the love, and feeling those kind of values and moments kind of gets you through things as well, like gets you through the most difficult times, and you're grateful afterwards too for maybe what you've learned or what you have been, maybe what you may have avoided by going through what you went through. And Fareen, what are your thoughts on that as well?
I think they obviously aligned with the same thing that Mariam said, and I think it's really important when you are practicing gratitude to be humble about it, and that every achievement that you get in your life, and if you're content with your life, it all comes from Allah. So to never think that you're, superior than someone else just because you got the achievement. You got the achievement through God and through obviously your hard work and everything. But it's really important to keep that. Is it humility?
Yeah, humility. Yeah, humility. And being humble. Yeah, being
humble in general. Just remembering that we are going to the same place after.
Yes, Yes, Mariam?
And I was just saying, if you think about our prophetic traditions from all our prophets, they went through so much trials and tribulations. And if you think about how they kind of navigated that was through gratitude. They were very grateful for Allah that this is a challenge that Allah has given them, and they saw a means of getting closer to Him. So I think that whole reframing of how you experience certain challenges is more conducive for you to kind of go through it.
Yes, thank you. So I think we both kind of said, well, Mariam, you mentioned like trials and tribulations and being grateful and prophetic traditions. And Farine, you kind of also spoke about being content and how we all are essentially the same at the end of the day. And I think that kind of reminds me of when you go to perform Umrah or any pilgrimage like Hajj, or any pilgrimage, because you realize then you all wear the same clothes essentially. There is no like anything, just signs of wealth or displays of any kind of materialistic things. It is pure just you and worship, and those times remind you of like actually why we are here, and that makes you grateful. And also just being content, I think, is a huge kind of principle in our religion and our faith. You learn to be content, and generally that is kind of what makes you happy in a way, like, because you can't always be wanting more. You should be grateful for what you have, and that's a very Islamic tradition. I think growing up, our parents always kind of said that to us as well, like you should be grateful, think about what you have, think about what others don't have. And again, that kind of reminds me of the charity work that we often do and want to do, because you think to yourself, how could I ever complain when I look at others and they're happy with what they have, which might be so much more less compared to what you have in terms of materialistic wealth and so on. So thank you for that. That is our first question. Our second one is, how does expressing gratitude contribute to a deeper connection with Allah?
How does expressing gratitude, like I said before, I think, you know what the thing is, when your life is going good and there's a lot of achievement, I think you get so busy in that kind of happiness that you forget to do that gratitude in your prayers, and you forget to reflect. You're just too busy on getting more than that achievement. Does that make sense? So when you're in hardship, when we go through hardship, we pray and we cry to Allah that, I have this problem, can I solve it, and help me and everything. And then when something that's good happens to us, we kind of forget about Allah, but that good thing comes from him,
Yes.
So that is the one way that I think we should express gratitude, to never forget that anything bad or good that comes is always from Allah, and we should always be grateful that we are experiencing this, because it's part of this dunya, it's part of life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're so right, and we can all kind of relate when it's maybe, it could be an exam, it could be your driving test, it could be a family tribulation that you're going through, and you will pray, you will turn to Allah, you will ask for help and so on. And when it's happened in the best outcome for you and whoever else, you have to remember that part. It's like, wait, I need to go back and give thanks, because that's all because of Allah, right? It's quite funny because I have a friend who is a Catholic actually, but it's a similar thing, because he was saying how the day before his driving test he was praying non-stop, and I said, so where is that prayer in a general day, or like when you do pass? And when he did pass, he did say he was so grateful, he was thanking God and so on. I'm like, see, I'm really glad that in that moment you remembered God, because that's how you got there, right? But I was relating to it, like it made me laugh, but I was also quite relatable, because I thought, it's always the case, isn't it? Like day before your GCSE exams, you're up doing Fajr prayer, like where was that energy before? So it's good to just remember that, because you should be grateful when you have it too, because it can be just as easily taken away from you. So it's good to practice that gratitude. Any thoughts on that as well, Mariam?
Yeah, just to add, I just think that when you are expressing gratitude towards Allah, Allah promises that He increases you more. And if you think that on a granular level as well, when you're grateful to your friends and your family members or anyone that you love, they tend to be more inclined to you, and they want to be at your service. And if you think about it, and when you think about Allah and His name Ar-Rahman, and for those who study Arabic, they'll know that there's root letters for each Arabic word. So Rahman, the root letters are Raham, which means womb. And the allegory that we can think about when you think about a womb is about it's nurturing, it protects the child, the mother protects the child, and in that way we're supposed to see how Allah is taking care of us, because His name, the root letters, is womb. So I think for me it's just thinking about how do we take that understanding of Allah, knowing Him and getting closer to Him through gratitude, can build our connection with Him. And I think for me personally it's just, I feel like the more I'm getting older, I think I have been thinking about contentment, because you realize that all these luxuries and things that you're going to go through in life, the materialistic gains, won't really contribute to your happiness. So I think happiness is actually it's a very arbitrary thing. I don't think you can actually attain happiness. People want peace and contentment. I think that's what you realize as you mature in life. And then in order to achieve that, you have to be grateful for the things that you have. That the things that Allah has already blessed you with is more than enough. And even you think about the people who come from very unfortunate circumstances, they're a lot more happier than the people that have all the luxuries. And you think about And why is that? When you unpack it, what does it mean? It's because they're grateful that they even have maybe food on the table. And even if it's not one day, they have it within that 1 week, once a week. And if you think about it in a political sense, as in what's happening around the world, people are going through chaos and they're going through, war-torn zones. You see people are so grateful for the little they have, and it makes you feel so ungrateful. But it's the connection to God that it's like unbreakable, because they know that this is not the end, that there's going to be a hereafter. And I think that's such a beautiful way of kind of framing it.
That is definitely, especially as you mentioned, the war-torn countries, people that are really suffering, not having, daily life is disrupted, but they still will be smiling and they have happiness. And you ask them why, and again, it's the same thing. They will be like, well, I have my brother with me here, or I'm just happy to be here today alive. And they have that connection, and they know that there is hereafter, and they have so much strength and faith in that. We can definitely look to that ourselves and learn quite a lot. But also, this also just reminds me, because I went to Bangladesh recently, and well, actually, I'll tell you a quote which is separate to me going to Bangladesh, but it kind of relates. So it was a story-ish, like, one of those old stories that people tell. And it was about a fisherman who used to just get about 10 fish a day, and then that's it, and then go home, spend the rest of the day with his family, just chilling, eat the fish that he caught that day, sell the few, keep a few, and then again the next day do the same thing. So he wouldn't, even though he could get, let's say, like 100 fish a day if he stays out for a few more hours, but he wouldn't do that. He'd just catch 10 and then spend the rest of the day with his family. And then like an entrepreneur came to him and was like, you have the facilities, you're a great fisherman, you have the boat, etc. Why do you only get 10? You could be making so much more money, you could be doing so much more. And he was like, okay, so tell me, like, give me the 5-year plan, like, envision the whole thing for me. So the guy explained, you'd be doing this, you'd have, you'd stay hours and hours, but you'd get so much more fish, you'd make so much more money, and then you could hire people, and then you could manage those people, and so on. And the guy said, all to do what? What will I do with all that money, and so on? He was like, well, you can spend it with your family, you can, enjoy time with them, and so on. He was like, I don't need to go through all those hoops to do that. I'm enjoying my time with my family now. Do you know what I mean? And it just put things into perspective and reality, because it's like, whenever you strive for more, what is it that you actually want? And it's that contentment and peace, which you could probably get with less anyway. And I think it did remind me of Bangladesh, because you see people living completely different to how you live. So people might have, like, not even things like TVs and phones, but that's a choice. Sometimes it's a choice because they could probably afford it, but they're like, we don't really need it. We're fine. We're happy. Like, we do our own thing and we're just getting by. Again, but you have that connection with Allah. Like, they know what their priorities are as a family, or even as a village, as a town. Like, everyone has the same priorities. And I think that really does help, because you kind of, your focus is on one thing, and you're like, we're grateful. We have this. We're content. We don't need to keep striving for more and more. That might just disrupt our peace. So that is, I think everyone gave good examples of how that contributes to a deeper connection with Allah, and how does the concept of shukr, which is gratitude, relate to the concept of sabr, which is patience in Islam? Fareen.
Everything that is good, you have to wait for. That's it. That's how I see it. That's how my parents always taught me. And if you mention it in your prayers, it takes time. Good things always take time. Bad things, they are always going to come to you in 3 seconds if you think about them. And achievements, and like your degrees, 3 years. Like, you have to go through all of that to get to that point, But the important thing is always remembering Allah. And then remember, if you pray, if you put in the hard work, and you're grateful for everything that you have, you're grateful for being at uni, studying that degree, having time with your family, your friends, and everything, then that good part at the end will come. So you do have to wait for good things, and that's why Sabbath is so important.
Do you think also that you appreciate the good thing because you were so patient for so long as well, so it feels almost sweeter when you have it?
Definitely. I feel like if you get good things really fast, when you get it, you don't appreciate. Yeah, you don't appreciate, you just want more. Every time I feel like nowadays, and it tends to happen, it happens to me whenever I have something, I just want something else. You're never satisfied with what you have. But this year, 2024, is something that I'm striving for and appreciating all the little things.
Wow, that's really, really good. And so Mariam, what are your thoughts on that?
I was just going to say that based on her thoughts. I read this quote recently as well, that it said that you need to slow down in life and think about where you are right now is one of the du'as that you asked for before. And you need to think about you're living your answered du'as before thinking about the
Yes.
next step, you have been praying for such privileges that you have today, and how much gratitude have you shown for that before you asking for the second thing, or the
Yes.
third thing, or the fifth thing, or the sixth thing. So I think that's something that really kind of put things into perspective.
I'm going to print that out, that
That
quote.
quote
Yeah.
honestly changed my perspective so much. I remember I saw it on Instagram and something, and I was like, I was in the whole like university process. I've talked about this, changing my course and everything. And I remember sitting in my accommodation room by myself, just moving and thinking, wow, like this is really true.
Of course, yeah, because you're so busy and caught up that you don't actually take a moment to think, I was praying for times like this.
Yeah, and now I'm
right?
here.
So, Amira, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something that's happened to all of us, where, we pray for something and we're actually living through it. It's happening to me now, being in college and just living life. So I'm really grateful for all of that kind of thing. And I think it's really good that we can take a moment to just, thank Allah for it and to pray for it.
Yes, exactly. Well, we should take that moment. Yeah. If we don't, we should. But yeah, so I think that you guys kind of really outlined the concept of sabr and how it links to gratitude. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on again how you mentioned, Fareen, like if you get something, the quicker you get it, the happiness, the less you appreciate it. It's just fleeting, isn't it? Because it wasn't even hard to attain. Whereas when you have sabr and patience and go through hardships and tribulations, you really feel the struggle. Then you can really, really appreciate it, because you're like, I worked hard for that. I earned that. Like, I struggled to get there, right? And then it means so much more to you. So I think that's something we should all try and remember when it's like, when you are going through that, and people advise you, like, have sabr or have patience, but you feel sometimes you feel frustrated. You're like, no, you don't get it. Or like, I've been waiting a very long time. I've been going through this, but you just have to get out through the other end. You have to keep going.
And when you think about patience as well, what are you doing at that time? You're invoking Allah a lot, and Allah loves those who invoke Him. And the way you're doing it is through prayers, is through du'as, and you're saying that in your private time and alone. And I saw this amazing kind of quote on social media as well, that you don't whisper to someone that's far away from you. And I thought that is so profound, because when you do dua, like, you're almost whispering to Allah. You're saying it in a voice that is small and it's quite
close,
humbling, and it's close. And when you do sujood, you're the closest to Allah, so you're almost whispering, but you're very close to Him. And that really kind of hit me, because I just thought, wow, because if you think about it, Allah always says that if you go through hardship, you're the closest to Him. And then if you're keep submitting yourself to Him, you keep praying to Him, you are actually just constantly praying to get to that next stage, or try to get through that thing. So it's just so beautiful how all it kind of interlinks.
It does, yes. And just on that, would you say there are specific situations or life events where gratitude becomes especially crucial?
I think it's a frame of mind that we should have all the time. But I think Ramadan, even just like, whoever's listening, if you're experiencing Ramadan, there is so much barakah in Ramadan, and there's so many hadith out there, demonstrating that when a person that has lived for Ramadan and experienced Ramadan, their space in Jannah is elevated against someone that hasn't. So if I was to pass away in a certain year and someone else passed the year after, but because they had that one Ramadan, it is more likely that they'll have a higher position. So that's how much barakah there is in Ramadan. And I think that's the time where we should be the most grateful, because again, we know that at the end of the day we're going to have food. A lot of people don't have food. And we know that we've been taken care of. We know we can even take annual leave if we wanted to in Ramadan to worship. There's so many luxuries that we have, and I think Ramadan is a very good time to reflect on, because not only are you thinking about the privileges that you have, you're rejuvenating. Your body is rejuvenating. You're kind of thinking about your spiritual priorities, your priorities in life. And I think that is a time where you can reset everything, what you're going through in terms of like your perspective, in terms of how you're navigating everything, but also you kind of reflect on the year that's gone by, the hardships that you went through, the highlights that you went through, the happiness that you went through, all the different types of emotions, and you went through it. Allah gave you a beautiful way to end in Ramadan,
Yes, that is so beautiful. I think linking it back to Ramadan, and just a simple thing like, you're going to have food on that table tonight, or you can, like you said, take time off work and you're still going to get paid. You'll be able to do all the normal things you do. Like, having that flexibility is amazing. And the fact that maybe you can study and sleep during the day because you don't have to work, because you have enough money to get by because of your situation and circumstances. Like, we are so grateful, right? So just before we are coming towards the end, so I just want to touch also on ingratitude, and when people aren't grateful, which can happen to all of us. So what factors contribute to ingratitude, and how can we overcome these factors? So I'm sure we've all been in those situations where we're not grateful, we forget and get caught up. So what kind of factors contribute to that when we're not grateful?
Entitlement. When you're entitled to certain things, you're going to be ungrateful because you think, well, this should have happened to me. I should have received that. And I think also in the kind of advanced world that we live, especially in terms of technology, even if your package doesn't come and you pay for Amazon Prime and it doesn't come the next day, you get so frustrated. But actually, if you think about the process, who's behind it? The people that are working, that you ordered at midnight and you expect it to be at 9 a.m. Think about it psychologically, like how we want instant results. So I think having that frame of mind that, as Farine said, good things come when you wait, and just not having entitlement is very important, because it can also transpire to other qualities that we don't want, arrogance and thinking we're superior to others and all those kind of things. Whereas gratitude humbles you, that you know that whatever you achieved and all the privileges you have is beyond you. It's not because of your capabilities, because Allah has blessed you with that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, linking it back to Ramadan, just being entitled and thinking there's going to be food on the plate on the table tonight. When did you help put that food on the plate, on the table? When did you assist? Do you know what I mean? Putting water on the table. Did you? That's just something to think about. I mean, maybe you did. Maybe you cooked for the whole iftar as well. But something to be really, really grateful for and not entitled for, right? Because someone still had to, there's such a process, isn't there? Someone had to put the food in the shelf on the store, and then you had to go there and buy it and travel there, make time, and then maybe you had to cook it. Like, there's a whole process, and those things we should really, really think about and not just expect. It's so often you just expect the food is going to come to you. It might not, right?
And just, when it comes to, why are you to complain that, I don't know, there's no salt in it, there's not enough
there
spices
you go.
in it.
Yeah, exactly. We are so entitled sometimes, aren't we? Farine, what other things do you think contribute to ingratitude?
I think it all comes down to being humble, I feel like whenever I'm not grateful for anything, so important that my parents or my siblings, they always humble you,
yes.
know? And it's something that's going around a lot, that I got humble. But I really like when someone they
ground you, don't they? Like, bring you back to earth almost.
Yeah, they're like, what are you saying? Do you sound so entitled, basically?
Yes, yeah.
So I think that it's really good to have people around you that
humble you,
pretty much humble you, and not embarrass you, but humble you and teach you. Obviously, my parents, like I said, I'm so grateful for them. They've always teach me how to be humble and how to never expect a lot if you haven't worked hard, kind of thing.
So again, good things come to those who wait, work hard, have patience, and so on.
This is saying in Urdu that says sabar ka phal meetha hota, which means that patience, is it patience?
It's sweet.
Yeah, the patience
bears the fruit, like patience bears the sweet fruit, something like that.
Yeah, so after a lot of time, basically, the last thing that you get after that long sabar, that long patience, is gonna be sweet.
Nice.
That's the allegories coming from where a tree takes a long time to grow, and then you have to wait for a flower to kind of bloom, and then you're gonna have to wait for the fruit. So it's a whole process. But if you wait for it, then you can enjoy the fruit from that tree.
Yeah, you just don't cut that tree and then plant another seed.
Exactly.
Expecting it to be better, That's
nice. I really like that. I love analogies and little quotes. Amira, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm definitely following what Farine said about, like, having your family and people around you who will, help you out. Because, like, you guys, my sisters and my parents, you guys have taught me to, be humble. You humbled me, like many times. I've like expected things from my older sisters because I'm the youngest, and they're like, no, don't expect that. You have to do it yourself. They're trying to teach me to do things, so it's definitely something that we need to work hard for ourselves.
Sometimes we take it for granted, and I think the most important thing about getting humbled is actually listening to that advice and taking it into account in your daily life.
Yeah,
really good, guys. Thank you. So again, we are coming towards the end. So I just wanted to mention this. Like, I guess you could say it was like a social study or psychological study, and it's gone around. It's been there for years, and it's what makes people happiest. And if we're talking about contentment as well. And it was literally practicing gratitude. So like what they did was they made people call up someone that kind of done something for them, someone they wanted to thank. So they called up whoever it was, their friend, their mum, and so on. And they'd say like, just want to say thank you for everything you've done for me, and just want to thank you, and so on. And then they all started crying, obviously, but it was like happy tears. And then they asked them after, and they were like, I feel really good. I feel really happy. So just practicing gratitude to others as well, to who's like you guys said, like, who may have humbled you, or just anyone that may have helped you in a situation. When you're grateful and you practice that gratitude, even like we said to God as well when you pray and so on, but also to the people around you, you will be happier, because that is literally proven study that you're happier when you're grateful. So it's something to think about. So I just want to go to our last question. How can Muslims incorporate gratitude into their daily lives?
I think your day is punctuated with salah, and I think having even the ability to stand up and pray physically is a huge blessing, because as someone that have had health issues before, I remember there was a time where I couldn't even stand up. I had to sit down and pray. So even having that ability is something that we should be really grateful for. And as we said, people to be able to even do sujood and be closest to Allah, some people can't even do that. So I think recognizing opportunities where you're disciplined enough to pray anyways, but just being grateful that you had lungs in your ear, not
air in your lungs.
I'm not fasting, but this is before Ramadan, just to
Pre-recording. Yeah.
So yeah, you have air in your lungs, and you have your family around you, and you have food on the table. I think there's very basic things that we take for granted, but it's very important. If you think about, if we didn't have those things, if we didn't have a roof over our head, if we had to think about where we're going to stay, if we didn't know we're going to be lived for the next day, and there's a real reality for a lot of people that across the other side of the world, we don't know if people don't know if their family are going to come home because of the kind of situations they're in. It's something that we should be hugely grateful for. We have so much stability that we don't even recognize that it could take a second for instability to come.
Yes.
As just waking up is something that we should be grateful for, honestly. After we wake up to go to sleep and start our day, just waking up, being grateful for like Fajr namaz, that's enough for you to be content with your life and realize that, I am grateful for my life.
I just want to quickly add, because it is a Ramadan podcast, everyone's waking up to have suhoor, to try to pray tahajjud, because you're waiting for the time to come anyways for Fajr. Just pray that 2 rakats.
That's really good advice, Mariam. Thank you. And Amira, anything about how Muslims can incorporate gratitude into their daily lives?
Yes, I think definitely before you go to sleep, it's good to reflect on the entire day and just thank Allah for everything. I've done that like many times, and I think you all should you all should do that, because it really helps you be grateful for everything that's been happening lately and just in the day.
And I feel like that's like your last conversation with Allah.
Yeah.
And before you go to bed, and you don't know if you're going to wake up, so it's a very good way
I always think about that.
Oh, that is so lovely, guys. Thank you so much for all of your thoughts and ideas today. I love the discussion, and that was our gratitude topic for this Ramadan show on Sisters Speak. Join us again next week, same time on Wednesday. I think our Ramadan show is at 7 p.m. But yes, thank you again, guys, for joining us. We'll be discussing another topic for Ramadan next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We stream our daily broadcast on inspirefm.org. You'll find all our daily updates on our social media at Inspire FM Luton.